Hey, I've got an honest question for you, open question for you today as we get started. Could you honestly say that your soul right now is at rest? I mean, really at rest in God? There's lots of times in my life where I would have had to answer that question. No, not at the moment. I don't know what your day has been like. I don't know what draws you or how this video arrived before you, but I want to visit with you for a few moments about learning how to rest, especially in the care of our open-handed God. We are in Psalm 104. This is Growing in the Gospel, and I'm Pastor Cary. Thank you for joining me. Every day we slow walk through the Psalms. We're also studying Revelation, and we're finishing up a series called Rhythms and understanding how God does mighty works in our lives through every season and life stage. So there's a lot going on the Growing in the Gospel channel right now, and lots to do and see and study in the playlist. But today we're in Psalm 104, and we're looking at verses 19 through verse 30. So it's a longer section of this psalm. And we're seeing, I think David wrote this psalm, we're seeing kind of a overarching, like a 30,000 foot tour of creation. And it starts way back in verse 1 and goes all the way through this psalm. Right now, we are picking it up, like I said, in verse 19. But we begin with this celebration. Bless the Lord, O my soul, because of God's greatness. And then we begin to tour through creation, the heavens and the earth, and where God is in respect to the supernaturality of creation, and then the generosity of creation, how he superintends and he governs, and he created all these systems to provide for his creation. We talked yesterday that we live in a fallen version of this creation, and we live in a fallen humanity, and so there's greed and selfishness, and we live in a scarcity mentality. But all of creation, in God's original design, from God's original intention, was to be a creation of abundance, a creation of plenty, a reflection of the generosity and the free-flowing provision and safety and security and protection and peace that God really wants everybody to experience, or wanted everybody to experience. But, we've rejected, as a creation, we've rejected God, and our creation has fallen from him. And so we're forever trying to play catch up, forever trying to fix ourselves, fix the world, fix our civilization. And we just continue to build systems that break and systems that create more problems. And every time we solve a problem, we create another system that's only going to become another problem. We just can't do it without God. We can't do it without Jesus. Why? Because he's the Prince of Peace. He is the rock. He's the refuge. He's the creator. He is the one who called us into existence and who knows how it all works. He owns it all. He's in charge of it all. He appointed it all. And yet we've kicked him out. We've kicked him out of his own creation. He came back to redeem us, to give us a way back to him, and we'll talk about that at the end of our time. But until then, and this is what's amazing about grace and about mercy, even though we rejected and rebelled against God, God didn't stop the sun from rising. He didn't stop the earth from rotating. He didn't stop the seasons from transpiring. He did not stop the earth from yielding its fruit and from the systems that sustain our lives. He's never stopped those systems. We are all, if you think about it, this psalm is teaching us, we are all extremely, utterly dependent on God's systems, on God's providence and power and provision. You and I, we're dependent on him to keep our heart beating. We're dependent on him to grow the food we need and send the rain we need and bring the light that we need. We're dependent on the sun rising in the morning and setting in the evening. We're dependent on all of these realities that, frankly, we take for granted. We take them for granted as forces of nature, a random, as though they're caused randomly. In reality, they're gifts. They're great gifts from God. He, even though we've spit in his face, even though creation has shunned him, defied him, resisted him, rejected him, he still continues to flow forward in generous care and provision. So we pick it up today in that thought in verse 19. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. You see, he still sustains all these things that sustain our lives and allow us to enjoy his grace in creation itself. Verse 20. Now the direction turns, and the psalmist is speaking to God. Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. The young lions roar after their prey, and seek their meat from God. The sun ariseth, they gather themselves together, and lay them down in their dens. Man goeth forth unto his work, and to his labor until the evening. So even the cycles of when the predators seek their meat and when mankind does his work and is called out to do his work and to gather and to live and labor until the evening. It's all a beautiful artistry, governed, like I said, superintended by the gracious hand of God. We keep reading in verse 24. O Lord, and David at this point just looks up with awe and wonder as we are doing right now. And he says, how manifold are thy works, how many, how multiplied, how beautiful, how beautifully multiple are thy works. That God would sustain all this, keep it all working in perfect harmony and synchronization so that we can live our lives, so that we can breathe and wake up and work and sleep and eat and enjoy and partake in all the good creation of God. Even though it's fallen, we see all these reflections of God's generosity and beauty and frankly, his reality. In wisdom, thou hast made them all. God's wisdom is ultimate. His knowledge, his intellect, his ways are far above our ways. So we keep reading, the earth is full of thy riches. He owns it all. It's all his. All of creation was spoken into existence by him in a moment. He owns everything. He's not stressed about how he's going to care for you, how he's going to pay your bills, how he's going to carry you forward. Verse 25, so is this great and wide sea. Now we're going to talk about the waters, the oceans, wherein are things creeping innumerable, both small and great beasts. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan whom thou hast made to play therein. Leviathan is some sort of large sea creature. Verse 27, these wait all upon thee. All creatures, this is one of the big takeaways from today. Every creature on earth, from the lions to the birds, to the donkeys, to the fish, to the large and small, to Leviathan, all of them, every single creature on earth waits upon God. What does that mean to wait upon God? It's not just a passive kind of patience. It's a dependence. They go about their living. They go about their doing. They go about their feeding and growing and living. But all of it, every moment of every day, they are utterly and totally and unavoidably dependent on God. That thou, listen how dependent we are, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. Every season of our lives, we're dependent on God. And this is what I love about this psalm. It's like we're 30,000 foot view of our lives and our creation and the world in which we live. And we can pause for this moment and just catch our breath and realize we're frantic at times, aren't we? We're pressing, we're pursuing, we're trying to achieve and accomplish. And so often it's all rooted in we're trying to meet our own needs. We're trying to save up enough. We're trying to store up enough. We're trying to get ready. Here I am recording this at the kind of the early parts of winter, and it's getting cold. And so we're getting ready for the winter season, and we're getting ready for the holidays, getting ready for us in Connecticut, January, February, March, the hardest months of the year. We're kind of getting our homes and our hearts and our wardrobes and our food and all these things ready for this time of year. But we're all so dependent on God, aren't we, to provide all these things. And here I am approaching 55 years of age, which I realize to some of you as a kid and to some of you I'm just ancient. But here I am, 55 years. God's fed me every day of my life. He's always given me a place to live. He's always given me clothes to wear. He's always given me commands to obey and a purpose to fulfill and people to love and things to do that honor him. And it just day to day, he has proven faithful. Verse 28, that thou givest them, what thou givest them, that they gather. Thou openest thine hand, and they are filled with good. Have you stopped to think lately that everything you consume, Everything you experience in the way of good blessing, from the sunrise to the sunset, to the ability to work or breathe or live or eat or watch this video, every single one of these things are the open hand of God reaching out to you and pouring out and letting his blessings, his goodness flow to your filling. Jesus said, I'm come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly, more fully. He wants you to be filled with his joy, and in thy presence is fullness of joy. He wants to fill you with grace, fill you with mercy, fill you with peace, fill you with goodness. It's his open hand. That's why I called this devotion our open-handed God. All of creation shows that he is the opposite of greedy. He is the opposite of stingy. He is the opposite of withholding. He is pouring out through all of creation his goodness, his beauty, his lavish love, his generosity. I think of this in the life of Jesus, that John said, not if you had tried to write down all the good things that Jesus did, all the world could not contain the books necessary. We see the vignettes in the Gospels of Jesus healing, and we think those are the only times he did healing. No, he healed thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of people that are not recorded in the gospel. He just went about pouring himself out. A great light, a great heart, a great goodness dawned on the land of Zebulun and Naphtali, Galilee, Nazareth, Upper Galilee. A great light dawned. This is why Jesus said, woe unto thee, Chorazin, Bethsaida, Capernaum, these three villages where he did most of his miracles the first 2 years of his ministry. He said, if Sodom and Gomorrah had seen what you have seen, they would have repented in sackcloth and ashes. How easy it is for us to take for granted the amazing, abundant goodness of God that we live and breathe and experience every single day of our lives. Verse 29, thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Oh, as soon as we feel like God has turned, as soon as something goes dark, we feel troubled. As soon as anything's rattled in our lives or our world, the verse continues, thou takest away their breath, they die. God has the authority to give and take life, and he doesn't have to explain it to anybody. He's God. And you can accuse him of taking life and accuse him of some injustice. No. He's God. He is the author of life. So he disperses and removes. He gives and takes as he wishes and as he deems best and in his wisdom. And nobody has the right to question God. Nobody has the right to hold him accountable to us. We are but dust. But he has the authority to give me breath or to take away my breath. And they return to their dust. Or my body returns. This is just an overarching, comprehensive sense of who God is and who I really am. And the gospel shines an amazing light on this. Look at verse 30. Thou sendest forth thy spirit. They are created. Now here's where we see hints of the gospel. And thou renewest the face of the earth. So we see here in verse 30 that God can take dying humanity, send forth his spirit, and recreate us, rebirth us, renew us. And God, as he promises all throughout Scripture, can send forth his command and renew all the face of the earth. And isn't that where the story ends? A new heaven and a new earth. So we're going to pause right here at verse 30 today, and I want to say a few things, and then I'm going to let you go. This is my God. This is my dad. This is the one who died for me. This is the one who I was so far fallen, so far flawed, so far sinful from him. I could never get to him. He left the glories of heaven, laid aside the prerogatives of deity, and became the incarnate Son of God, Jesus. And he grew up walking the dust of this earth, living the life I live, feeling the pain I feel, experiencing all the infirmities that I experienced, touched by all of them, but yet without sin. And then he gave himself on a cross. He died for me. It's as if it were enough that he would have created all this and blessed me in all these ways and poured out his generosity and abundance. And then we rejected him and rebelled against him. But then he said, I'll come to get you. I'll come and I'll even die for you. We're but dust. What is man that thou art mindful of him? but he values you and he values me. So much so that he gave us his own son. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Now, friend, if you're honest with yourself, every day of your life, you depend on the goodness and the faithfulness and the love of God. Whether you've trusted Christ or not, you are depending on him right now. You are utterly dependent. And so why wouldn't I want to belong to this God? Why wouldn't I want to be redeemed? That doesn't happen by being religious. It doesn't happen by going to church. It doesn't happen by watching a video like this necessarily. It doesn't happen by being a good person. No, new birth, new life, being redeemed to God happens only by placing deliberatively, strategically, decisionally is the word, placing my faith in Jesus Christ alone, not a church, not a pastor, not a priest, not my own morality or behavior or goodness, not some force. No, salvation is realizing I have fallen far from God and only Jesus can save me. He's the only one who died, took my place on the cross, rose again to conquer death, and offers to come into my life, into my heart, if I will open the door. So friend, if you've never done this, I want to encourage you and invite you right now to turn to Jesus, talk to him, cry out to him, and ask him to come into your life and trust him as the Savior that he is and the only Savior and the only hope for your soul. And if you have trusted him, then I want to encourage you to rest in his open-handedness. He knows your name. He knows where you are. He knows how to meet your needs. He's going to walk with you wherever you are and whatever you've gone through. You can put your soul at rest. You can let not your heart be troubled. You can let the peace of God rule in your heart. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. So I don't know what is troubling you today, but if you belong to God, if he's your Abba, if he's your dad, then as he causes the sun to rise, he is going to hold you together. He's going to feed you. He's going to care for you. He's going to meet your needs. As you're trusting him, as you're crying out to him, he is going to walk with you. He is an open-hearted, open-handed, generous, lavish, exceedingly good Father. And there is just nothing like belonging to him. Now, last thought. I can either trust and rest in him, or I can resist and work against him in this life. And I'm ashamed to say that many times in my life I have, not intentionally, not willfully necessarily, but maybe even subconsciously and maybe subtly, discovered myself to be working against God in my life. Those are my greatest sources of anxiety and fear and frustration. And those times in life make me unsettled and edgy and sleepless and worried, tied up and tense, stressed. But especially it seems in the last 4 or 5 years of my life, I've just really tried to draw close to this idea of learning how to rest in God. I lead a growing church and a growing school and a staff of 75 people and all their families. And I'm telling you, sometimes it's overwhelming. I just get overcome by it all. There's a lot to it, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of pressure that can come into it, a lot of things to worry about. How's God going to pay all the bills, and how are we going to make payroll, and all these things that can consume me, they can come upon me. And by the way, as a sidebar, it's why I so appreciate so many of you who pray for me on a regular basis, because the Lord knows I'm really weak. And this is a big responsibility, but he is strong. And I find that it's his church, it's his ministry. These are his people. And I'm at my best for them when I'm at rest in him. And so it might be in your life for the people that you love. Maybe you're a dad or a mom. Maybe you're a husband or a wife. Maybe you have a managerial position in some situation in your work, or maybe there's others that you love. And I just want to drive home to you that you are at your best for them when you're at rest in him. And when you're not at rest in him, then you're really not going to be at your best for anybody. Not yourself, not your spouse, not your kids, not your grandkids. not anybody else. And so maybe let's pray a prayer together that God would help us to leave off of our anxiety, our fears, our worries, and that we would learn to more rest in the open-handed, good heart of God, because he is a refuge. He is generous. He's lavishly loving. He's good. He's got us. He's got us. He's got us. We really don't need to worry. I have a good friend. His name is Don Sisk. Don is 90. He's been serving the Lord for 70 years. I had the privilege of writing his biography with him. It's called Where Only God Could Lead. It's a wonderful story if you like biographies. I think you can get it on Amazon, Where Only God Could Lead. But Don was for many years a missionary in Japan, and he now still to this day, he's 90, and he still travels the world really every week, preaching in churches and encouraging people to be faithful to the Lord. But I was talking to him a year or two ago, and I said to him, so Don, when you look back on your life, do you regret any time you've ever worried? And he looked at me and he shook his head. He said, man, I've worried too much in life, and I didn't really need to worry at all. And then he paused and he laughed and goes, on second thought, maybe I should have worried more, because most of the things I worried about never came true. So in other words, maybe it was doing some good, is his point. But then we had a good laugh, because here he is 90, and he would resonate with this psalm where he just would say, God's taking care of me every day. I don't know why I ever worried about anything. And isn't that how we're all going to feel when we see him? So that is our time together today. I hope that you have been encouraged and blessed and strengthened. Maybe you'll share this with a friend that you love and care about. If you're new, I hope you'll subscribe and stick around and take the Growing in the Gospel journey with us. If you've trusted Christ as a result of growing in the gospel, let me know. Email me or post a comment down below. I love to read your comments, by the way, and I thank you for your encouragement, and I enjoy your questions. So please feel free to comment and to become a part of the conversation. So have a great day. I am praying for you, my friends, and I thank you for letting me teach you the Bible for a few moments. We'll pick it up here tomorrow. See you then.